Good Monday afternoon. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille Show. This program spotlights the best of Charlottesville, the best of Albemarle County, and the best of Central Virginia. We are live on the I Love CVille network in Charlottesville, Albemarle, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. For the next hour, we're going to talk to two firefighters that are making this community better. Greg Wright, the president of the Charlottesville Professional Firefighters Association, will join us in T-minus 30 seconds. Matt Warne, the VP, the vice president of the Charlottesville Professional Firefighters Association, will join us as well. We will talk about a topic that I think undoubtedly you should follow closely. These gentlemen and the association in totality are seeking about $1.3 million from City Council and City Hall to fund 12 new firefighter positions to staff this department as it should be staffed. Okay? Like I said to start this program, you don't need a firefighter until you need a firefighter. And at that point, you better have enough personnel to help you with the issues you have on hand. Before we welcome them to the show, we are an advertising agency. And on the second floor of the Macklin building, our building on Market Street in downtown Charlottesville, 12 of us guys are representing a lot of clients up and down the East Coast, from New Providence, New Jersey, where our satellite office is, all the way to Asheville, North Carolina. Two of our favorite clients, Interstate Pest and Service Companies, and Dr. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. These businesses also making Charlottesville better, like the Firefighters Association. Interstate started in 1969 with the first generation, Mr. Robert Wells, who used his personal truck and payphones around Charlottesville to build a company. Today, 4 generations of family run the business, and almost 100 team members staff it. They have the staffing they need. The Firefighters Association should have the staffing they need as well. We'll also give Scott Wagner some props to Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine, changing people's lives through physical therapy, chiropractic care, and sports medicine. Again, like and share the stream and put comments in the comment section like Timmy Sursley has done. Brotherhood, above all, do work, Greg and Matt, like Jonathan Hughes has done. Matt and Greg, wait to lead the fight. We are proud of you guys. Staffing matters. Like Joe Phillips has done. Staffing matters. Give it a like, give it a share, just like Kyle Courtney, Chris Carter, and Michael Barber have done. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Studio Cam, Judah Wickhauer. We have a ton of freaking people watching the show right now. We're going to start with El Presidente. Greg Wright, kind enough to join us. The show is yours. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, introduce yourself to the viewing public. What are you all about as a man?
Absolutely. First off, thank you so much for having us here.
Our pleasure.
It is an exciting opportunity. We've been looking forward to it. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I have to say one thing. For the people that are just listening and not watching, we're clearly out of uniform. We're off duty. We're speaking as citizens, as friends. So just want to make that clear.
Sure.
But yeah, name's Greg Wright. Originally from Denver, Colorado. Been in the fire service now for about 17 years. Started with a little volunteer agency in Gunnison, Colorado. And that evolved to a job on the south rim of the Grand Canyon, and then ended up in Rockingham County with some of the best men and the women in the Commonwealth to serve over there before I was fortunate enough to get hired here in Charlottesville. So I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a brother, specifically happily married to my lovely wife Jennifer for almost 3 years now. The wives frequently don't get a whole lot of love when we're away advocating for all the members, but we always like to point out they're the ones that holding this whole thing together behind the scenes that allow us to, one, go to work the extra hours that is required, and two, keep everything at home squared away while we're also advocating for our brothers and sisters.
Great answer. What is it about this community you love?
So when I first moved out here about 13 years ago, again from the Denver metro area, when I first came into Charlottesville, it reminded me of Boulder, Colorado, a little college town, pretty liberal, good music scene, a lot of funky, cool things going on, and it felt like home. So after some time in Rockingham County, I really pursued the opportunity to try to get hired here in the city and work for a metro-sized department in a little denser, little more urban setting than what was Rockingham County, and have loved it ever since.
Let's get Matt in the mix.
Absolutely.
Matt, Vice President, Charlottesville Professional Firefighters Association. What are you all about, dude? Who is Matt Warne?
Again, I like to echo what Greg said. Thanks for having us. Happy to be here. Matt Warne, been a firefighter in Charlottesville now for almost 14 years. Started my career in 2006. Got hired pretty young at 21, which is a fortunate thing. so I can get that early retirement hopefully. Started my fire service career back home in Hanover County. I'd like to give a shout out to those guys. I got some brothers and sisters back home listening out today as well. Started volunteering there in August of 2000 at Ashland Volunteer Fire Company. Moved out to this area about 6 years ago, so I commuted for about 8 years before we moved out here. My wife got a job at World Strides out here, so we moved out. A little bit much for two people to commute an hour and a half each way. I'm a father. I have two kids. My son is 8 and my daughter is 12. We currently live in Fluvanna County. Enjoy this area. Was coming out here from a kid, used to go to all the UVA football games. My grandfather graduated from UVA in 1952. And so we've always had a tie to the university and coming out here. Of course, when I came out here initially, all I knew how to do was get to the football stadium. So that was a little bit different when you become a firefighter and expected to know where to go. But yeah, love this community with all my heart. It's been here since like I said, I was 21 years old. Slowly closing in on half my life being out here. So anything we can do to better this community is why we're here.
I love it. I'm going to throw this question to you as well. We'll throw it to Matt first. What is it you love about being a firefighter?
Well, everybody always wants to say they love helping people, which we do, and there's no doubt about it. At the end of the day, the calls go out, the doors go up, the trucks go out, and we have a job to do. It doesn't matter who it is, where it is, or what the nature of the call is. We all know what our job and our task is to do. And there's no two calls that are the same, and I think that's what keeps this job thrilling and keeps everybody coming back. And knowing and doing the little things, and every now and then you get a thank you or you help somebody with even the smallest things, it's really what makes you enjoy your job to the fullest.
Great answer. Same question for you, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a good question. For me, it really boils down to the people. One, the people that we serve, and two, the brothers and sisters that we meet at work. You get to interact with just this swath of the community that otherwise you might not have been introduced to. When I say interact, I mean live, eat, sleep, break bread with our fellow firefighters, and you create these lifelong bonds that they do become family. They're at your kids' birthday parties, they're at weddings, they're really become the fabric of your actual life at work, away from work, your support network. There's people across the country that I still keep in touch with like they are family, and that was just from our schedule, the way we work, and the way that we do create that bond.
Can you guys spotlight, and you've done a hell of a job already, can you spotlight the brotherhood, the sisterhood, what it's like to being in the trenches with your fellow firefighters and how it builds bonds that, withstand the test of time?
Sure. It's like we talked about earlier. You spend 24 hours a day with these folks, and yes, you have wife and kids at home, but this is your second family. I was in Greg's wedding. We've got other guys that had, most of the people at my wedding were from the department all across all 3 shifts. So when you live and eat with these folks and watch movies and hang out and joke around and play volleyball and basketball and things like that, it's just another way of life. And when you have that opportunity that then transitions into your career and the jobs and the calls that you run, and these people so well, it's almost like you don't need communication because you know these people so well. You just flow and you work and you can get the job done, and it's an awesome feeling, man. It really is.
These guys are crushing it so far. We're 12 minutes in. Relay your comments and your support for the Firefighters Association by putting your commentary in the comment section of any of these 12 Facebook pages you're watching the program on. We're going to welcome some people to the show, and then I'm going to ask you about some of the nitty-gritty here. Before we get to that, we want to thank the following folks: Tim Ryan in Crozet, Joshua Pugh for watching the program, Chris Courtney is watching in Charlottesville, he says in Belmont, Robbie Kovarak watching, Daryl Mason, Frank Crocker, Michael Barber just shared the stream. We have the Daily Progress in City Hall watching the program now, as is NBC 29. Give us some insight. Wayne Hupman says Local 4664 is listening to this program right now. Give us some insight into the day-to-day in the Charlottesville Fire Department. 2 citizens, not in uniform. What it's like from a staffing or lack of resource situation.
So it's become a challenge, frankly, simply put, is in 2017, we added an ambulance to our daily staffing complement. So for those of you that don't know, we staff 6 fire trucks. There's 1 battalion chief on duty, and then a 24-hour ambulance. At that time, we had identified we were going to need 9 full-time employees to make sure that that ambulance had 2 attendants on it at all time, one being a medic level provider. We were given 3 employees, which meant 1 person per shift. So inherently, we've been at a personnel deficit for some time. And what that does is it creates a situation where even when we manage leave to the best of our abilities, if one person calls in sick, if somebody is on family medical leave for a pregnancy, for an injury, whatever it may be, that it puts us in a situation where we're having to work 48 and 72 hours straight frequently.
Same question for you. What have you seen? Give us the first-hand, in the trenches perspective.
We've had, again, this has been an ongoing issue for a number of years.
This is important to emphasize. This did not just spring up over the last 30 days.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, this is not a unique situation whatsoever. We've added people over the years in hopes of curbing some of the overtime, and what happens is it just continues to build and grow. And then when you add apparatus into the equation, because that's what's best for this community, and you hope to get people to staff that, and you don't, then it falls back on us. We have to work the overtime. We're expected to be there, again, whether it's 48 hours at a time, 72 hours at a time. Now, that's not all the time. It's often, but it's not every week that we're doing that.
Increasingly frequent.
Sure, and there's certain times a year that, summertime vacations, everybody likes to go on vacations with their families. Again, we have families at work, but we still like to go on vacations with our families at home. So it's not a unique situation. It's been going on for a long time, not within the last 30 days. And this 12 to 15 staff members, for right now, that's going to be right. But in the future, it's probably going to be more.
You got some comments coming in. Stephen Lewis Warner, welcome to the program. Lori Dowdy says, Lori is watching in Phoenix, Arizona. Please pass this along to the fellas. If you have comments, put it in the comments section. Your page is blowing the F up right now. Greg Wright. Frank Crocker, thank you for sharing the stream. I'm going to throw this to you here. A tired firefighter or an overworked firefighter or a firefighter that's stretched to the bones and stretched too thin, how can that potentially impact performance?
In multiple ways. So normally our schedule is structured as such that you can get a day of actual rest and recuperation to keep your cognitive abilities at the highest level. Our tiller truck that operates out of the Ridge Street Firehouse is a $1 million piece of apparatus. It's highly specialized. It takes over a year to build. It's not a piece of apparatus that we would want to wreck or endanger our lives, the citizens' lives, properties, et cetera. Our paramedics administer cardiac drugs. They administer painkillers. These are controlled substances per the DEA that need to be accounted for at all times, correct doses given. And so you don't want somebody that's in a fog to have the opportunity to provide incorrect care or make a mistake when I know it sounds cliche, but it's literally can mean the difference of life and death.
Put it in perspective. This is a tough question for you. You've gone to a call. You saved someone's life. The importance of a firefighter. I started the program with this. You don't need a firefighter until you need a firefighter. And when you need one, he's got to be on his top A game.
Yeah, I think we all know that if there's a fire, a vehicle fire, car accident, you're going to see a fire truck. Like you said, you've saved someone. So there's a lot of misunderstanding that when someone calls 911 for a medical emergency, 9 times out of 10, based on the nature of the call, you're going to get a fire truck as well, where we try to staff each fire truck with at least one paramedic or someone there certified close to that level. All of us at the Charlottesville Fire Department are at a minimum of BLS providers, basic life support providers. So if nothing else, if we run with our ambulance or we run with our partners in cars, it's a set of hands. It's a set of knowledge that somebody may be missing something, like as Greg as a medic is running the call may miss something that somebody else may pick up. But in doing so, if you've been there for 72 hours and those are the things or 48 hours and those are the things that you're expected to do, you may miss something, plain and simple. Especially like he was saying, you got folks that are giving cardiac drugs and things like that, and the last thing you want to do is be in a fog. For someone like me who's not a paramedic, who's not a truck guy, if you will, if you put it quite simply, is if I'm driving the fire engine, then I'm responsible for a $750,000 piece of apparatus, as well as 2 other lives that are on that truck, at the very minimum.
You're getting props. Brooke Johnson says, drop the mic, Greg. That was fantastic, what you just said. I'm going to throw this to you. When you go, I was so impressed with the unity I was so impressed with the teamwork. I was so impressed with you guys going to City Hall, going to City Council, wearing the same shirts, and coming together in organized, intelligent, strategic fashion. I'm going to get out of the way. I'm going to throw that topic to start with you, about you going to City Hall and making the push and what you guys asked for.
Sure. I think one of the first things is we do want to be thankful of council and their continued support. Absolutely. And their willingness to sit down and hear the issues. We have multiple counselors that have a long-standing relationship with the association that are willing to at least hear about what's going on and do the best to educate themselves. We're in a commonwealth where there's no collective bargaining, and at least not yet. Maybe that'll change. But oftentimes the only thing that we have is that unity that you're talking about here, where we have to get together in numbers in a calculated, concise manner and present the best case scenario, worst case scenarios, and a lot of facts. And that's what we've been trying to do. We've been trying to, one, provide all that data that our counselors need to make informed decisions, and also humanize the issue, because that is one side of it that you can't quantify what time away from a birthday party looks like. You can't quantify what missing your child's baseball game, t-ball game, what Christmas morning. Those things are very difficult to articulate when it comes down to dollars and cents and a line item budget. But it is that human effect that these decisions that council makes has.
Madison Smith, welcome to the show. Aaron King, Kenneth Martin, welcome to the show. A couple of city councilors watching the program as we speak. Joe Phillips says hello. Ken Kroll, Anthony Pack, hello and welcome to the program. Albemarle County Fire Department is watching the program as we speak. I even got to bring that up. I read in the newspaper today that they're thinking about cutting the Stony Point Fire Department. That's a topic for another show. Keith Smith in Fluvanna County, welcome to the program. Why get into leadership in the first place, Matt, within the association? I'm going to also throw that to you.
Certainly.
For me, growing up, I had some great mentors growing up in the fire service in Charlottesville that have since retired, and seeing the great things that they did for this association always made me want to be a bigger part of the association. I started out just trying to be helpful in things that they needed, and when the time came to potentially move into a leadership role, we have elections just like anything else. I don't want to say that we campaign quite like other elections, but when the time came, I felt like I had been in the department long enough. I guess at that point I'd been in about 7 or 8 years, and felt like that it was my time to try to step up and to be a leader. Obviously not so much as a unit leader or a captain on an apparatus, but for the people of our department that are members of our organization. I like to do personnel stuff. I like to deal with personnel issues. Greg's the much smarter end of this spectrum and does a lot with politics. So when the time was right, I felt like it was my turn to try to step up and make a difference for our organization.
Same question for you. Jojo Robertson and Lori Dowdy. I will get to these questions. Questions coming in already. Charles Atkins says, good work, gentlemen. Salem, Virginia in the house. We have municipalities from Martinsville, Salem, Richmond, Northern Virginia, Charlotte, Nashville, Phoenix, Colorado, fire departments watching the program as we speak. Why did you get into leadership in the Firefighters
First
Association?
off, I'd like to say hello to all the brothers and sisters out there. We appreciate the support, and we appreciate that unity on the highest level. So thank you guys.
Amazing.
I had the opportunity to get involved first with the leadership in an association in Rockingham County. Brooke Johnson, who you pointed out earlier at the time, was president over there. There was some major gaps as far as what was going on with some relatively mild things regarding uniforms, some worker comp issues, that type of thing, that basically I opened my mouth and turned into next man up situation. So that evolved into attending state level meetings with the Virginia professional firefighters, learning from one of our retirees, Robbie Bragg, learning from, at that time, Mike Moeller, and a number of our district vice presidents at a state level that kind of gave me a background. And so when I got to Charlottesville, through a little bit of a tumultuous time in the department's history and the association's history, I found myself in a position of becoming president, which at the time I was I was thrilled, and that thrill immediately turned to panic and the fact that I needed to quickly educate myself on a number of things to make sure that I could move a collective unit forward on as far as pay, benefits, our staffing levels, our equipment purchases, and then actually root our values, make sure that they match the department's values, make sure that they match the community's values, and bring that together in some type of meaningful way, and not this scattershot approach where it looks like we're a bunch of whiny firefighters that are always asking for more and more and more, when really we want to be on the same page with management, have a seat at the table, bring solutions, bring different ideas, and in an articulate way, and not just, again, that scattershot approach where, you're trying to have 84 firefighters come independently to the fire chief.
Your position is like so many different hats. I mean, you got vision, you got strategy, you got to play the politics game, you got to understand the X's and O's. I mean, in a lot of ways, you are like the general manager of a professional football team. You got to get the players, you got to get the playbook, you got to understand what's on the market, you got to understand where you're lacking, you got to understand your strengths, you got to understand your weaknesses. I respect what you do here. So when you are galvanizing and you're coming together, like Valerie Reinhardt Quick said, the Charlottesville Fire Department is compassionate and professional. What a great asset to our community. We are stressing our resources, which has significant implications on the city of Charlottesville, Virginia. When you understand the plight and how difficult a spot you're in, and you're using a megaphone or you're using the team coming together to try to show unity, and people in power or influence are not listening to you or ignoring you or disregarding you, how does that make you feel? What does that make you do?
Well, as I think you've seen as a community scene, we are a passionate group of firefighters. The men and women in Charlottesville, and across the Commonwealth, across the nation, we do this job because we absolutely love it. And the frustration has been that we're always considered those experts on public safety and experts in our field until it comes time this year or every year when we speak about the budget. And then we're quickly told, stay in your lane, you guys are the firefighters, let the adults in the room here handle the budget. So, like you mentioned, when we're basically screaming it from the rooftops that we need staffing, we need money, so on and so forth, and it falls on deaf ears, it does become very frustrating. We are very aware that the schools need money. We know our brothers and sisters in blue at the police department, they need better facilities, they need some vehicles. We know we're a piece of that pie, but again, this has been an ongoing issue that we have been advocating for. We have been quiet for as long as that we can tolerate it, and this is what it's culminated in.
The topic and the conversation crescendoed and went to a different level with an email exchange that was uncovered by the Daily Progress and printed.
Yes.
This is coming from me,
Yep.
not you guys. It's coming from me. I'm going to read the quote from Dr. Richardson, the city manager. Judah Wickhauer, our director, has the quote that he's going to put on screen for the folks that are listening and not watching. Dr. Richardson is the city manager. He said this. He said, "You are a firefighter who oversees a limited number of employees on a daily basis. Your educational achievements and certifications, as well as your limited work experience as a supervisor, will never be a match to any of my qualifications or credentials. So let's be clear about who is ignorant and overwhelmingly shallow as a professional in the field of public administration." End quote. Me talking, not you talking. The strategy or the lack of PR savvy by the number one position in the city of Charlottesville, Dr. Richardson, for him to write this in a paper-trailed, documented method shows a number of things to me. Out of touch. Shows a number of things to me, like marginalizing what the firefighters do for a daily basis and the value proposition they provide to the community. Shows a number of things, and Judah, put that back on screen, shows a number of things of him not wanting to work alongside your brothers and sisters in the fire department. He said, "I inherited this issue. It's not my problem." You can go in any direction you want on this topic, right?
Sure. So obviously a lot of layers there.
Yeah.
I want to get to all of them.
Yeah, let's unpack it.
Yeah, let's start unpacking it.
Yeah.
Let's start with what prompted that response. So I do want to acknowledge the verbiage that I used in my email to to the city manager. In that email, I did say that he was willfully ignorant, and that has since created another layer to this issue. So for that verbiage, I do want to apologize directly to the city manager and to the public at large if they were offended by that verbiage. I'm acutely aware of what went on here August 12th, 2017, July of 2017, as part of the response to those events. I've done my best to educate myself to the structural inequities that exist in our community and have for several hundred years. And I try to be compassionate to those issues. So for anybody that was offended by the term willfully ignorant, I do apologize. However, moving forward, we have to figure out a way, as you mentioned, that the city manager, the CEO of our city, responds to an employee like that. When I read it, I was actually stopped at a railroad crossing. I was flipping through my phone because I couldn't go anywhere. Read it, and then had to pull over because I was so taken
You were
back.
floored.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know what to do with it. So it was very disheartening from a labor leader's perspective, from an employee's perspective, and from my own personal perspective. It was a lot to kind of take in and figure out where to go next with all of that.
Well said. I respect the apology, but I don't think, and I don't want to assume, that's why I'm going to ask the question. I don't think you came from it, you didn't come from it from a bad place to begin with.
No, certainly, and I know it's difficult for anybody to understand what
Because
my
it's an
intention
email.
was. Right.
Yeah.
So there's no context.
There's no context.
It's not this long format
Exactly.
like this. The verbiage that was used in there was a culmination of all of our frustration, because I am that funnel point for all of our members. And so after asking for some meetings, after attending council meetings, after attending budget workshops, and basically being told, we started this conversation with asking for personnel. And now we're in a position trying to defend cuts. So that's why it's become very nuanced. We need 15 people. We asked for 12, said we could get by with 9. We're told absolutely not. We're actually going to shut down a fire engine. We're going to restructure the department. We're going to change your schedule. We're going to change to a Kelly day. So it's become so nuanced that all that frustration led to that. And the intent was never to have any type of racial undertones. It was to express frustration at a very intelligent, very successful professional leader of government, and not to incite or invoke feelings that this community has regarding race relations.
Yeah, respect. Well said. And I totally got that. And I think the majority of the community got that.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I
totally, 100%. And I don't want to speak for the community, but I think what you said, it just absolutely makes sense.
I think it's important, too, to know that the email, and we've talked about this before, the email was sent directly to Greg's email. However, that affected every one of our department members. It wasn't just him. It wasn't just me. Yes, we're passionate about the department, but you know what? So is every one of the men and women that work for the Charlottesville Fire Department. So is every one of the men and women that work for the police department. And again, we're not taking away from the schools. I understand that they have what they need, but right now we're in a fight for our lives because just like Andy Sacadato said, standing in front of City Council last week, are you willing to bet the house on somebody's life? I'm not. He's not. And nobody is in the Charlottesville Fire Department either, from the top to the bottom.
Respect. I mean, it makes so much sense to
Yeah.
me. So throw this to you. What do we do?
So yeah, again, multifaceted.
Yeah.
I think the first thing, and we've had Don Gathers and we've had some counselors reach out, try to figure out a way to have
Don Gathers has come on the show multiple times.
Awesome.
He would be a great advocate for this.
He's
Absolutely.
huge.
Yeah.
I just spoke to him Saturday evening at the Ghana tribute, I guess, for Winneba Way, the road
dedication.
down at 6th and a half Street. Spoke to him down there. Super supportive. Thanked him for his support. And every time that Greg spoke to him and I spoke to him, he's, without question, says absolutely anything you guys need.
So I think that it has to be framed in some type of facilitated discussion to get dialogue opened back up, because there's quite a few barriers that exist right now between the city manager's office and the fire chief's office, and then we in that stream of things, we're employees pretty well down the chain. So we're advocating for a group of people, but by no means does the city manager have to recognize what we are saying. So we would always come to the table to have that type of discussion, to open those lines of communications back up with the manager. I think they still exist with council, but it's really going to have to be framed in one, mutual understanding and respect. of the actual issue at hand, and that's a budgetary issue to ensure that we have adequate number of firefighters for this community. And then me and the city manager can have a professional conversation about where and when we agree to disagree and not have these types of personal attacks.
Dustin Wetzel says, yes, Greg, get him, brother. You have Lori Dowdy saying, respect. You have JoJo Robertson saying, I'm very grateful to the firemen and the EMS that have helped me in many extreme health cases. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A lot of comments coming in. This comment is coming in not only on Twitter, not only on text message, IGDM, Facebook GM, and in the comments section. Can we discuss the role of the Firefighters Association and also the firefighter chief? You know, what does the association do? Why is this not the chief's role? And you're not speaking for the chief.
Right, yeah.
You're speaking for the associate. Yeah.
Sure. So
you get that question?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're a local affiliate of the International Association of Firefighters, the IFF, as well as we belong to the state association, which is the Virginia Professional Firefighters Association. So if we were not in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Virginia, we'd be considered the Firefighters Union. That term does not exist in the Commonwealth at this point in time, so we're the association. So underneath the body of the IFF, we do advocate for, again, pay, benefits, appropriate staffing, appropriate gear, just a whole host of things that oftentimes a fire chief can't go out for by the nature of his or her position and politic on.
I think it's important to know, too, that throughout the years, we've obviously been through a number of city council folks. We've actually, as you know, we've seen several city managers and interim city managers in the recent years, and we've always had a great working relationship. Not just because who and I, Greg, are, but going back over the years to the decades of leadership that have run this local, back to when it started in 1974. And we've had that working relationship with whoever the fire chief was at the time, and with who was on the council, and who was with the city, whoever the city manager was. Even though we're not a collective bargaining state, we've created that reputation, created that friendship and that bond to where they do allow us into these situations, and we have meetings with the chief, and we have meetings with the city managers, and we have meetings with counselors, and they respect us, and they allow us to be a part of this process. They don't have to, but they do, and I think it's important to understand that that's one big piece of our organization that we're really proud of.
Give us the concept and educate the public about the council and the association holding a 2-2-1 meeting.
Yeah.
Just give
Absolutely.
it to us.
So, that's just a situation. So anytime that there's 3 or more city councilors in the same place, it's considered a city council meeting. So if you have two counselors, and then the odd person out is a way that you can hold small meetings and not have all the pomp and circumstance that comes along with an actual city council meeting. So no minutes, so on and so forth. It's a tool that's typically utilized in a budgetary process or in times where city leaders, as far as the department heads and the city managers, need to update council on some pressing matters, but don't have the time, ability, or I guess just the need for a full-blown city council meeting.
Where do we go from here?
So from here, from our standpoint, we're going to continue to have a presence in the budget workshops, at the council meetings. I'm hopeful that as council finally had a chance to really start unpacking that 200-some page budget that they weren't presented with until 10 or 11 days ago, that we can look at some things. Again, we're not advocating for a reduction in service of any other department in the city. We understand how vital each one of these players are to make this community the vibrant community that it is. But there has to be some plan in place to, one, ensure that we do not reduce the services. Right now, what's being suggested is shutting down one of our engine companies at our headquarters stations. And so just want to read off those neighborhoods that would affect.
Please.
That would be Ridge Street, Fifeville, Johnson Village, Star Hill, 10th and Page, and Venable if we shut down Engine 7.
Okay, so let me jump in here.
Yep.
This is me saying this.
Yep.
Okay, so, all right, I'm going to choose my words carefully. So if this happens, Charlottesville City Hall is essentially shutting down coverage in a lot of ways to the city of Charlottesville's most vulnerable and historically African American neighborhoods. in the community.
In a word, yes.
Yeah, densely
Yes.
populated.
Densely populated neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that is something that needs to be emphasized and covered here.
Yeah, so that's just engine 7. So that's one of the engines. If we were to shut down engine 5, now we're talking North Downtown, Martha Jefferson, Woolen Mills, Belmont, and the other section of Old Ridge Street.
And have you guys clearly, maybe through social media, obviously you're really amplifying this message on the I Love CVille platform. Have you clearly outlined, if we shut these engines down, these are the neighborhoods impacted?
This is the first time that we've taken that strategy forward. Tonight, actually, we'll be attending hopefully 2 of the meetings, depending on how this timing falls for these neighborhood associations. But again, it got nuanced because we were really going after staffing per the shirts, per everything we put out there, and it's turned now into this. No, we're not supporting staffing. We're going to have a reduction in services. And we're talking, if we shut down an engine company, stop EMS transports, we're saving less than $1 million, but it is a drastic cut for our ability to provide fire suppression services, to provide advanced life support. It would be a huge impact that the community would feel immediately.
Keep going. What else should be highlighted here?
How about the personnel?
Yeah.
Greg's assigned to engine 5 and I'm assigned to engine 7. Now we're on different shifts. Makes no difference. The community doesn't know what shift is working. That's merely for us and our families to know when we're supposed to report to work. But again, 2 different call areas. Now imagine combining those call areas and it's Greg on A shift on engine 5 running all of engine 7's first due and all of their first due, right? Or me on engine 7 in the same situation. Not only those densely populated areas here, they're all yours, right? So what's going to happen? The call volume is going to go through the roof. I think each one of those apparatus run, 1,500 calls a year?
Every bit.
So now you're going to double that to 3,000 calls a year that they're going to try to cover. But in reality, are they going to be able to cover it? Because multiple times throughout the day, both of those apparatus are out on calls at the same time. So what's going to happen? They got to come from somewhere else, so you got a delayed response. They got to come all the way across town from Fontaine Avenue. You have a delayed response. And again, who does that affect? The citizens of Charlottesville.
How about this? And I'm just trying to humanize and make this even more approachable so people understand. A delayed response. I mean, obviously it means you guys showing up to an issue late.
Exactly. So everyone in their mind, we all understand that when we leave the building, it's someone is having an emergency. And you want to get there as fast as you possibly can because most days they don't call us when they're inviting us over for dinner. Somebody is having an issue at their home or their business or whatever the case may be. And the object is to get there to get them that level of care, whatever they need as soon as possible. And if they need to go to the hospital, then that's the case. Or if there's a fire, because minutes matter. And if that is delayed service from across town, even though the city of Charlottesville is only 10 square miles, it still takes time with the traffic. Everybody knows how that is at certain times of the day in the city. Those things can be delayed, and those minutes matter, whether it's a stroke, a heart attack, or a fire. It matters.
Do you guys often feel, and go anywhere you want with this, so in the city budget, and I am not, and you are not by any means marginalizing the allocation of taxpayer dollars to any other needs. We need to fund schools.
Yep.
We need to fund infrastructure from a roads standpoint.
Absolutely.
Okay, we need to help people stay in their homes when assessment and taxes go so high that gentrification is happening, and we need to be able to maintain that these guys can stay in their homes. Okay, We're not marginalizing that stuff, but do you feel at all forgotten or marginalized or disregarded? I mean, I was reading in the newspaper today, and you guys know more about this than I do, about the Stony Point Fire Department. And essentially the CEO of Albemarle County, Dr. Richardson's position in the county, said the Stony Point Fire Department is getting the least amount of calls. So we're going to consolidate in a lot of ways and cut, I believe it was Monday and Tuesday personnel down to help figure out a way to save some money. Well, I look at this as a dad and my wife who works from home with our kid. If shit was hitting the fan at my house, and I lived around Stony Point, good Lord, I would want you guys there, within 10 seconds.
Of course, because it's your family.
It's
right?
family.
Yeah. And so, as you mentioned, the county's host of issues is a whole nother box of worms
it's
we can
not
get
even
into another day.
Right. It applies to this where it's
absolutely.
firefighters are forgotten or marginalized.
I think in the county and the city as well, the taxpayers have an opportunity to go to their respective boards or council and let people know what the priority is in the budget. That We seemingly are in an affluent area generally as far as what the tax dollars are coming in. I'm not talking about people's actual personal socioeconomic backgrounds and situations, but on the largest scale, we're in good shape. The county's in good shape. And the citizens do need to have a realistic understanding of our capabilities or lack thereof, and then start making things a priority. Obviously, affordable housing is a priority. Schools are a priority. Appropriate number of police officers are a priority. When we have to start looking at some other very difficult choices beyond that. And frequently we have felt we wanted to be quiet for as long as possible, that we have understood all these nuances to the budget, but we and our colleagues in the county are facing a situation where we need taxpayers to be vocal, to let their boards, councils know that public safety is that priority in the manner that you discussed earlier, that when you're away from your home, that professionals are coming to help you out to mitigate your emergency rapidly.
I think, I forgot what I was going to say. Typically, he's talking about the budget process, right, and where we are financially as a city as a whole. Do we have a $5 million surplus or do we not? Who really knows? Typically, this city has done well even back to 2008, because I was here, I was new, I was 2 years in. I even had a conversation with the fire chief thinking I was going to lose my job. But this city's always had money, always been prepared. When you hear Greg talk about browning out an engine or taking the engine out of service, that typically only happens when you're in a financial crisis, not when you're just wanting to brown out an engine company because you think you know how to run a fire service.
And that's and this is me as a citizen, this is me as someone who pays a hell of a lot of taxes tied to this business, in our building, to the city of Charlottesville. Okay, this is me talking. It really frustrates the hell out of me when the city manager says, "This is a problem I inherited."
Yeah.
That pisses me off.
So as a point of clarity, Dr. Richardson, we're closing in on a year of his tenure here.
Yeah.
There's a number of highly intelligent, highly engaged employees that have, across the city, been willing to engage.
That relayed this to him on his first day on the job.
Right. This is nothing new.
This is not new.
No. And that citywide, I think everybody is aware of the amount of attrition that's happened at the department head level, which to us is startling, and it's something that we're doing everything we can to stave off from our organization, because there's been some clear undertones of dismissing a fire chief, which is never a good idea, rarely leads to a safer community. But
why would anyone consider that?
With the track record that the city manager is proving right now, we're very concerned about it. We have
and to save some money?
I think more or less to impose his will. That he is dead set on this is how we can save some funds and not increase staffing but cut services. And my opinion is he sees Chief Baxter as an obstacle in that process, and we're definitely concerned that we're looking at a situation that CPD has been facing for several years now, where we start turning over department heads, we make cuts.
Charlottesville Police Department straight up had a mass exodus of team members.
We're looking at that, honestly.
They lost 12 at one time. They've lost 60 over the last 3 years.
We have 35 members of our organization that are not vested. Jesus. So it's a huge swath of our personnel that you talk about these cuts. They're looking at Northern Virginia. They're looking at the Richmond metro area. They're looking at Lynchburg. They'll go somewhere that does have some stability downtown and at the department level.
A lot of comments come in. I'm going to relay the comments and then throw this topic back to you. I'm going to throw this to you: the importance of leadership with a fire chief. I'll throw that to you. Before I do, I'm going to get to the comments. Kenneth Martin says this: denying black neighborhoods fire protection. That is a whopper that needs to be out there. Please discuss that statistic again. Give us that statistic again with the potential loss of that first engine.
Yeah, so if Engine 7 shut down, we're talking Fifeville, Johnson's Village, Star Hill, 10th and Page, and Venable. Those are the neighborhoods that Engine 7 is first due to 24/7.
Also important to know that those are the major affordable housing communities in this community
absolutely.
We're fighting for, right? That they have every city council, and we sit there and we listen to it, and it's a huge group of folks that are out supporting that. But this is how we support that. We cover that area with fire suppression and EMS care. Take Engine 7 out of service, and you're losing it.
I'm going to straight up say this. This is me, not you guys. Okay, Mayor Walker, Michael Payne, Cena McGill. Cena McGill used to live in 10th and Page. She's since moved. Mayor Walker, Councilor McGill, and Councilor Payne. You ran on an entire platform and campaign and secured votes from the City of Charlottesville's voters by saying you would have the back of 10th and Page, by having the back of Fifeville, by having the back of residents in Ridge and the Ridge community. And now's the time to step up and not make empty promises when launching your campaign. If you're going to have the back of these neighborhoods, you undoubtedly have to support the firefighters here. Ray Cadell has said, I'm pretty confused. Isn't this just a no-brainer? Isn't there a surplus? Aren't rising real estate assessments driving even more money into the tax coffers, especially in the city? How is this not being funded?
It's a great question.
If somebody knows, please call in or send their messages in, whatever the case may be. We'd love to know as well.
Jehu Martin lives in the city. These reductions should not be allowed to happen. They are the result of those that have run the city, not only the current council, but the past several councils, not understanding how to develop the local economy, how to attract business and good jobs and increase revenue. The fire and police need to be fully funded, and the city has to have development and business people that know what they are doing at the highest levels. Cannot agree with that comment more.
It's my understanding that when you get rid of or one city manager leaves under their platform, right, the next one is brought in to better the cities and better its organizations within the city. That's not what that's not what's happening right now.
Dr. Richardson replaced Mike Murphy, the interim city manager. Eddie Clark says this. Greg and Matt, thank you for your passion and your professionalism. Both of you have represented your local, your profession, and your members well. Stay strong. I'm going to mess up his last name, but it's John Schreider. Nice job, gentlemen. Give it a like and a share on any of these Facebook pages you guys are watching the show on. The show is going bananas right now.
I just want to give a shout out to Eddie Clark myself. He's one of the guys that I've known since I was 15 years old and 16 years old when I got started. So thanks, Eddie. Love you, brother.
The role of, so you probably get this a lot, and I was wondering this too. I'm not as, I don't know this situation as well as you guys do. What is the role of the fire chief? Why is the fire chief not going and fighting the battle on the front lines? Okay. Have you heard this question before?
Yeah. So to the second part of that, the Chief Baxter has been incredibly supportive of us. I know he has different restrictions as a department head, so I don't want to comment on why he is or isn't out there in the public championing this cause, but I know he has been supportive to us. We've had a great relationship based in some mutual understanding, some guidelines that we set up 4 years ago. We have ongoing, actually I just came from a labor management committee meeting before I came down here where I sat down with the executive staff and then to here. But generally the role of the fire chief is to be that executive, the professional, the highest level expert that we have within the fire department. So that sets the tone and expectations as far as appearance, as far as our internal budgetary concerns, which in our case, Chief Baxter has been a champion of firefighter health and safety. He secured permanent funding for firefighter physicals. So we have a medical physical that happens every single year. This is, we've increase the amount of physical activity that we do every day through policy changes, ensured that our cancer risk reduction policy is actually built into policy, not just a recommendation of get all that bad stuff off you at the scene of a fire. We've remodeled firehouses to put showers downstairs. We have 2 sets of fire gear. As far as what the industry standards are, these are things that Chief Baxter has included in that. But generally, they are that figurehead. They have a role in operations, but really that administrative go-to, that final expert on all things public safety. He functions as an emergency manager during, whether it's an August 12th type event or hopefully not an impending pandemic. So
you have multiple neighborhood associations watching the program.
Excellent.
As we speak here. Let me get to some of these comments. The comments are coming in faster than we're going to be able to get to. So you have folks from the Fifeville Neighborhood Association watching the program. Jerry, we are tuning in now as an association. Can you please ask the firefighters again to emphasize what will happen if the engine is cut for our neighborhood? I think that right there is a freaking story that needs to be out there.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Yes.
So next week we come back and do it again.
Anytime you want. With that over
That's
there.
right. That's right.
So what happens? Our Ridge Street Firehouse has 2 engines, 2 pumpers, and 1 ladder truck. So the 2 fire engines that actually have water and hose on them, if we take one of those out of service, that means now, let's just say if we took engine 7 out of service, now engine 5 doubles the amount of neighborhoods it's responsible to responding for. We've decreased the staffing of that station by 3 people and effectively cut our fire suppression services on the engine side of things by 25%. So this has immediate impact on our ability to take care of all the tasks on a fire ground. So when we show up to a structure that's on fire, this isn't a step-by-step process. This is all of these things need to happen at the same time. That means stretching hose to an entry point. The guys off the ladder truck have to force a door or go to the roof. We have to search the building for any victims that might be entrapped, all the while securing utilities that are outside, set up some type of command system, make sure that there's firefighters that are also dedicated only in case there's an emergency involving a firefighter that gets trapped or disoriented inside a smoky structure. So this isn't a if-and kind of situation. This is A through F have to happen right now, and we need all the hands on deck to make all these simultaneous tasks happen at the same time. You take away 3 firefighters and 1 fire engine, that slows that process down dramatically.
It's not, to tag on to what Greg's saying, and this is not something that we can do with 9 personnel. It's been made, a comment has been made in the past by the manager that we should only be responding with 2 engines and a ladder truck. We can handle any fire with 9 people. Do you think 9 people can handle everything he just told you?
Hell no. Is that right?
Right. That's a good answer.
Hell
that's
no.
That's a great answer.
I was going to say something else.
It's your show.
Yeah.
No, they can't because, and God forbid, that's just if everything goes well. But God forbid something happens, Greg goes down in a fire. All operations stop. Then you need more people. And he's only speaking about fire. We don't have that many fires in the city. Let's flip that
Fortunately.
Fortunately. Let's flip that to the EMS calls, which we do have a lot of, which is what we're here advocating for personnel for. You take that engine out of service, and again, it doubles Engine 5's responsibility, and you're not going to get the coverage that you had before because
As a
of nothing
point of clarity,
else.
Our fire engines have the same complement of equipment, training, and gear that the ambulances in the city of Charlottesville do. Just they don't have the capability of transport.
Yeah, we don't have a stretcher.
So we have cardiac monitors. We have all the drugs that we talked about earlier. We have the ability to provide advanced life support. You take those things out, again, like Matt mentioned, from a stroke call or a cardiac arrest victim, where now we're prolonging that first initial response. It's detrimental to everybody.
Yeah.
Our friend of this program, Bill Kerr, watching the program. Love some Bill Kerr.
Yeah.
Jojo Robertson emphasizes you have multiple neighborhood associations watching right now.
Awesome.
Excellent. Please contact me.
You're able to do essentially this amplified as opposed to doing it in person to one. You're speaking to many. So Jojo says this would affect Crescent Halls, Midway Manor, South First Street, West Haven Housing. This needs to be talked about a lot more.
Yes.
Brian Powell, remind him of NFPA 710 minimums.
Yeah, so NFPA 1710 is an industry standard that's out there that dictates how many people should be on each fire engine. So we always like to highlight the fact that in Charlottesville, per the National Fire Protection Agency, the recommendation is 4 firefighters on each pumper and 5 on our ladder trucks. We staff 3 people on everything. So we're pretty unique in Charlottesville that we have 50,000 people plus 22,000 students crammed into 10 square miles. And so the recommendation from NFPA 1710 is based on the density of our city, is why we would have 5 on a ladder truck, 4 on each fire engine, just to ensure that those operations that we're talking about are actually accomplished. And the one thing we do like to highlight with people is 1710, if your locality chooses not to adopt it, there is still case law that exists out there that the city could be culpable for civil damages or other damages for providing inadequate fire services.
You have folks from CBS 19 watching the program, Daily Progress, NBC 29, and CVille Weekly watching the program. Jehu Barton says, cut neighborhood development services. Ever since a guy named Jim Tolbert ran around harassing local businesses, it is now thankfully gone. They seem to do what? That is as important as fire and police? No way. You cannot micromanage the fire department. Give them what they want. Jay Wyant says this. It's easy to take for granted that these guys will be there when needed. But when the day comes that you do need these guys, it is incredibly humbling to watch the work they put in. I have known firemen my whole life, but have recently utilized the services of 4 departments outside of the city, and I will never, ever, ever take for granted the needs of these guys again. Anyone who suits up to do this job deserves the very best equipment and funding available. They are everyday heroes. That's from Jay Wyant. Well said, Jay Wyant.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
Jay.
You got this comment coming in. John Wright. Is that kin to you?
No, he's not.
Not in this area.
John Wright says, our firefighters in Charlottesville are battling a city manager and council who are willing to jeopardize public safety by cutting staffing, brownouts, and closing a station to save a buck. Too often, these politicians and bureaucrats don't understand nor care what the ramifications of their decisions are, so long as it meets their agenda. This is literally playing with fire. Dude, well said, John Wright. I can't emphasize enough how many people in these neighborhood associations are watching in Belmont, in Fifeville, and 10th and Page, 10th and Page, and Prospect, and North Downtown. They're asking us to please. This is how you humanize the story.
Right.
It's a whole, like you said, it's a whole story in itself. Right?
This is a story.
Absolutely.
This is the neighborhood.
That's right.
Okay. Can we emphasize exactly what the engines? The first engine, is it called a brownout?
Yes.
If the first engine is browned out, what exactly a brownout is again, and if the first engine is browned out,
Sure.
what it will do.
So when we refer to a brownout in our industry, that means taking a once operating fire engine, fire truck out of service to reallocate those firefighters to a different piece of apparatus. In this case, that would be to move them to an ambulance. So we're basically just playing the shell game. We're moving firefighters from an engine to an ambulance, and then we're taking a fire engine out of service. So in this case, we have 2 fire engines at our Ridge Street station. Engine 7 responds to Ridge Street, Fifeville, Johnson's Village, Star Hill, 10th and Page, and Venable. Engine 5 covers North Downtown, Martha Jefferson, Woolen Mills, Belmont, and this other section of Ridge Street. So you can look at those, and they're very densely populated residential areas. Again, like was mentioned by one of the commenters, that includes Crescent Hall,
Absolutely.
Friendship Court,
Lewis and Clark.
yeah, a number of
Ridge Street.
our most at-risk populations that we do interact with frequently.
Yeah, we run a fair amount of calls in all those areas.
That these again are our 2 busiest engines in the city. They're pretty much tit for tat on who runs the most. 7 typically edges out Engine 5 by a few calls a year, but they're extraordinarily busy engines, and shutting down one of them, the workload on the other is. There's no sense in thinking about sitting down for a meal. Yeah. There's no sense in thinking about you're going to lay down for a minute. You're going to come to work. You're going to be on that fire engine for 24 hours straight, and then that's going to translate into longer wait times for any of the community members that live in those neighborhoods.
And God help you if you get hired for overtime, right? Well, we started this program. If you get put on that engine and the workload doubles, we've had the conversation before. People are going to quit. It'll kill you, straight up kill you. There's no way that anybody can keep up with the amount of call volume that those 2 engines run combined and be able to have any sort of sustainable rest periods or life outside of the fire service.
And we tried this. So a little over a year ago, we took one of the engines out of service and we put into place what we would call like a QRV or a rapid response vehicle. It's basically a pickup truck with next to no firefighting capabilities but has emergency medical supplies. And that vehicle was responsible for EMS calls in those 2 first dues. And it ran the 2 people assigned to that thing ragged to the point where we realized that we were reducing fire suppression needs by that 25%, which was going to affect our ISO and our accreditation, and then also that human side of things where those 2 firefighters coming off that rapid response vehicle the next day would just look like zombies.
It's important to emphasize this, guys. We want to be a world-class city in the city of Charlottesville. If we're going to be a world-class city, we need to have the infrastructure in place to embody that tagline. And if we have our police department literally sprinting for the door to go to the county, to go to Fluvanna, to go to Waynesboro, and not work for the city of Charlottesville, and if we have our Charlottesville Fire Department really being on thin ice from saying, hey, do we want to keep working here because they're stretched so thin, how can we be a world-class city? The city manager, the city council, and city hall it's paramount and it's critically important that they fund both the police department and the fire department so we can have a world-class city. Bill McKenzie says this is what we pay taxes for, not all the social programs and other frou-frou junk that keeps getting funded. Thank you, Bill, for offering that perspective. Bill Kerr's got a question. Bill Kerr, I believe, Charlottesville firefighter?
He is. And local business owner.
Yeah, and local business owner.
Cameron Limousine.
Cameron Limousine. He's one of our clients.
Okay.
Love Bill Kerr. I'm curious if the proposed changes by the city manager will affect response times for not only fires, but medical emergencies.
100%.
Absolutely.
To jump back into what Greg said a few minutes ago with the 77,000 people that are within this 10 square miles. And
50K citizens, 22 and some,
with the
UVA.
And that's not to mention the folks that come to the city every day for
tourists.
Right. It's a tourist town too, right? And all the hotels that are going in, all up and down Main Street. With those 77,000 people, okay, so you brown out an engine company. Well, like Greg said a minute ago, our engine companies all have the capability to perform those EMS duties except for the transport stuff. So we add a second ambulance from the Charlottesville Fire Department. Our friends at Cars are doing the best they can day in and day out to staff that. It's a struggle. Everybody knows that. As someone, like you said, with my wife that works in this city, I take it for granted for a long time because I worked here and I didn't have any family here. But as my wife, or someone as my wife that works in this city, to know that any given time that in this city, with cars being stretched thin and us not being able to staff the second ambulance without taking the engine out of service, there is only one guaranteed medical transport unit in the city at any given time, and that's Fire Medic 10.
Well said.
That's scary.
That is scary.
For 77,000 people minimum.
That's terrifying.
Or 72,000, whatever the case may be.
Math's hard.
We are 65 minutes in. Guys, I'm going to try to get to as many of these comments as possible. What can we expect from the association moving forward? You mentioned that you guys are going to go to the neighborhood associations and explain this.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon?
So the most immediate things are the budget workshop on Thursday, which will be in attendance. Again, trying to show some solidarity for the teachers, for the police department, but mostly for our needs. And then what we would like to do is invite the community out with us on March 16th before the next city council meeting.
Absolutely.
We'll be distributing literature basically from the corner all the way down the mall, talking to business owners, passing out some flyers, some posters, trying to garner as much support as we can, and then be going to the city council meeting. So we would love for people to come out and support us. There's details on my Facebook page, and I'll make those public. I have a feeling we're going to have to move locations, so just bear with me as we figure out parking.
Yeah.
But we would love to see the neighborhood associations out there, our fellow brothers and sisters from the police department, our teachers, anybody and everybody that can come out and let them know that they support us at the fire department.
Yeah, the comments on here are great, right? And those comments can be made at the city and council chambers as well. I think, as folks have said, and as we've said here today, the ladies and gentlemen of city council, when they took an oath of office, they took an oath of office for the citizens of the city of Charlottesville, and they need to be heard. Citizens need to be heard.
Good question coming in. A couple more that I need to fire to you. This is Alan Grote. Can CARS generate more staffing? CARS is Charlottesville Albemarle Rescue Squad?
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay. Can the Charlottesville Albemarle Rescue Squad generate more staffing of volunteers by offering some sort of fiscal incentive for the organization as well as the volunteers themselves?
So
It's an interesting question.
yeah, that's also really nuanced. So the one thing I do want to highlight is our organization as well as CARS have put out a joint statement, and in some the Charlottesville Albemarle Rescue Squad has been very supportive of our ask to gain more staffing to appropriately staff a second medic level ambulance. I know CAR's vision is to be the premier basic life support transport agency for the city and the county. That revenue recovery side of things is rather finicky once that money hits the general fund, of trying to reallocate those funds back out to ensure that CARS has the apparatus that they need, that their buildings maintain the way that it needs, and that they have the supplies. I mean, just simply to make sure that their volunteers are outfitted with boots, pants, coats. I mean, there's a whole lot that goes into running that agency. So I think their first step, one, is to hire their executive director, and then move forward with using some of those funds to create positions somewhere in the city.
Don's watching the program right now. Don Gathers.
Excellent. Hey, Don.
Hey, Don.
Don Gathers, hello. This is a show that, Don, you're getting some props here on the program. And I think your patience and your vision is certainly going to be an asset here. We have a lot of comments that are coming in, and we're not going to be able to get to all these comments. I want to close by giving you guys each a final word, anywhere you want to go. And then I'll close
Take it home,
with some comments of my own. Anyone, you want to go first? Greg?
No, he's boss. He goes.
So sure. Again, we do want to highlight and thank the City Council for their ongoing dialogue, their ongoing support. I know we have friends on council. I know that they have a very difficult job, approaching impossible, trying to give everybody a big enough piece of this pie to go around. But I want to let the citizens know that we feel it is a very valuable piece of the pie. We're talking $13 million out of $200 million for round numbers that we desperately need. The men and women of the fire department need that influx of personnel. We're not asking for pay raise. We're not asking for better
You're
benefits.
asking for 7.5%.
Right. And be clear, like I said, we're not asking for a pay raise.
Yeah.
We've simply asked for personnel, FTEs.
We want to be able to provide the same level of service with the appropriate number of people, and to ensure that there is always that adequate transport EMS service and fire suppression that the city desperately needs and deserves.
Again, couldn't have said it better myself. As we talked about over and over, the neighborhoods could be a whole nother show in itself. Happy to do that. Love it down here.
Yeah.
Be glad to come back
That's
anytime.
a story.
Yeah, be glad to come back anytime. I think we could sit here and talk about it all day. Again, this it's a hot button topic, and we understand that. We understand they have a job to do just like we have a job to do. All we're trying to do is, I think the community gets it. Now we just want the managers of this city to get it. And these neighborhoods are going to be affected. And so are we, and so are our families, and so are our friends, and so are the birthdays that we miss, and the holidays, and everything else. We're humans too. We want to be able to get out of here.
You
and go
deserve
home.
a life.
Yeah, we love our job. Just like he said earlier, that we don't get. Most of us have started in volunteer organizations where we didn't get paid for any of this. Paying is just a bonus for most of us, right? We love our jobs, but it doesn't mean we want to work 120 hours a week every week.
Yeah. Jeez, this is a no freaking brainer. Everyone watching this program, support the effort. How do you be a world-class city, and how do you be the happiest city in America when the police department and the fire department are under-supported and underfunded? You cannot be. City councilors that are watching the show, city manager and city hall that's watching the program, you mention that you're running for council or you're doing your job to support and to champion, to stand up for the most impoverished citizens in the community, and that is the entire effort of affordable housing. That is the entire effort of tax rebates to help people combat gentrification and rising tax assessments where they could potentially lose their home. Well, if you're going to go to bat for someone from an affordable housing standpoint, and you're going to go to bat purportedly for someone to offer tax rebates for their home, you undoubtedly should go to bat for the same folks that could lose their home in a fire or could lose their life in a health situation where the first people to respond to that health situation are these gentlemen and their association. I think the City of Charlottesville, Central Virginia, and everybody that follows the I Love CVille network needs to come together, email Dr. Richardson, email City Council, and say, firefighters and this association needs the support they deserve. They're not asking for pay raises. They're asking for personnel so they don't have to work 120 effing hours a week. Jesus.
No, that's not every week.
I totally get it.
Yeah, it's not every week.
Even 120 hours in 1 week is too much. I mean, how do you do your job to its fullest if you're clocking 120 hours? You can't.
You can't.
Yeah,
can't.
you just can't.
Yeah.
And you guys should be like A++++ every single time you're in the firehouse.
Yeah. Because you're expected to be, right?
Right.
The citizens don't know when you got to work and when you get off.
Exactly.
I just want to say one other thing before we go. As far as our organization goes, Greg and I can't thank our members enough for the love and support that they give us day in and day out. They've entrusted us for almost 7 years now to run this organization, along with Jeremy Graybill, who's our secretary-treasurer. And it's our honor, it's my honor every day to get up and come to work and know that I'm the vice president of this organization and to work with one of my best friends in the whole world sitting across from me right now. And like I said, been in his wedding. He's my son calls him his best friend. We're family. Though we come from two totally different backgrounds, we're family just like we are family with everybody else in our organization, in our department, and we couldn't do it without them.
Respect. Here's what you should do if you're watching this program. You should like the show, and you should share the stream you're watching, and you should like it and share it, and when you share it, you should tag your Charlottesville City Councilors in the comments and share it to their page, or tap them on the shoulder that this is important to you. Literally do that now. Like it and share the stream. Say you have the firefighters back in the city of Charlottesville when you're sharing it, and tag the city councilors and the folks that work for City Hall. Do that now. It supports the effort. I am not going to get to all these comments and text messages coming in. I'm sorry if I was unable to relay your comment on air. There are hundreds of them. Hundreds of them. This is the I Love CVille Show. We close the program the same way. First, we can tell you where you can watch the show in totality. We will archive this show on ilovecville.com. For the next 2 weeks, we will syndicate this show across the I Love CVille network, which is 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, the third largest Instagram page in the community behind UVA and City Hall. We have an e-newsletter that goes out to 130,000 inboxes every morning at 11 a.m. We have a podcast on iTunes and a podcast on Apple Podcasts, and of course here. I close the program by saying the entire method, the entire mission of this show is to spotlight the best of Charlottesville, Virginia, and these gentlemen embody that quality, the best of Charlottesville, Virginia. We embody that quality, and we try to every day, and we ask everyone who's watching to please embody the golden rule as well. Treat other people in your life how you want to be treated yourself. It's the golden rule. It's a straightforward concept, but it's a concept the community undoubtedly needs. I'm Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille Show. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, anytime.
Appreciate it.
This is awesome. Thank
Anytime.
you. Yeah, hell yeah.
Anytime.
Same time next week?
Anytime. Anything you guys need from me, seriously.
We appreciate it.
Anytime. One more thing we're going to do. We're going to take a quick photo.